So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu becoming the first foreign leader to meet with President Trump since his tariffs went into place. U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce joins us now. Tammy, we know about where the Israelis stand when it comes to trade, but I also know they're going to be talking about what happens when it comes to Gaza. The reports are they now control 50% of Gaza, and for the first time, they are clearing and holding land. What's their objective now as it relates to the hostages?
Well, I'm sure, not having been in that meeting, but we know that what the president has said and what Secretary Marco Rubio has said for the State Department is that the hostages have to be released. Hamas cannot continue to have any role or exist in Gaza. And the president has noted, of course, a constant work for a ceasefire. None of that has changed. All of this is happening because of what Hamas has done. Israel continues to defend itself. And in our case, of course, we continue to argue and push for and demand a release of the hostages that are still being held, including an American hostage, of course, Adon Alexander, and a need for a ceasefire, which we were on. We had one. We are on track for a second phase. Hamas decided never mind, and that's where we're at. So the goals have not changed. Certainly not for us, not for the State Department, and not for the American people.
Have you heard a proposal, or are we presenting a proposal for the day after the fighting stops, and the hostages are returned? What is the image of what Gaza would look like, or are we still working that out?
Well, what the president has said and what Secretary Rubio has reminded people is that nothing can really happen until the fighting stops and the carnage ends and the hostages are released. The president has issued a number of different ideas, but he's made it clear to everyone in the region there has to be a new idea. It cannot be what it's been before. We have to make sure this does not keep happening every generation. So what it looks like afterwards is, in fact, if we will be successful, is that Hamas will not exist. There will finally be an end to the carnage, and then the region and the world will be able to work on how to get, especially the first victims of Hamas, the Gazan people, into a framework where they can have a future they can rely on.
We were surprised to get this and intrigued when we heard this announcement from the president yesterday.
We're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. I think if the talks aren't successful with Iran, I think Iran is going to be in great danger, and I hate to say it, great danger, because they can't have a nuclear weapon.
I know we're sending another aircraft carrier steaming to the region. The Iranians come back and say these aren't direct talks. They said they will be indirect talks. You'll be in separate rooms and go to an intermediary. What could you tell us?
Well, you know, they're at the table, and they understand to take President Trump seriously. They know that he's a man who does what he says, he means what he says, and they're suddenly at the table. And this is the difference when it comes to a powerful leadership that makes it clear to the enemies of humanity that they had better stop doing what they're doing and do as we tell them effectively, which is to stop the terrorism, stop, in this case, certainly the seeking of a nuclear weapon and of nuclear framework when it comes to the nature of what they say. It's, of course, for peaceful civilian purposes. But, of course, Iran is the world's largest sponsor of terrorism. So we know what they're doing. The president has said they will not have a nuclear weapon. He is serious. He's going to make sure, and I think they know he's serious. So that's what's happening here. And it's, of course, going to make not just America safer, but the world safer. And the only person who could have done this is President Trump, alongside a cabinet that also takes all of this very seriously for the world.
Will Secretary of State Marco Rubio be leading those talks on Saturday?
Well, we know that the Secretary of State has been involved in the peace talks for Russia-Ukraine. He is, of course, the leader when it comes to America's diplomacy. He is, in fact, I think, safe to say, the world's leading diplomat. So clearly, without being involved in the nature of negotiations or diplomatic planning, Secretary Rubio has made a huge difference already around the world. And I think that we're going to see an imprint from him as directed by President Trump on this dynamic as well.
So it's not, we don't know if it's going to be Steve Witkoff or it's going to be Marco Rubio, your Secretary of State Marco Rubio yet?
Well, I'm not going to speak about who's going to be in a negotiating position. The president noted it would be almost the highest ranks, almost the top people. But we'll eventually find out. But I can't discuss that at this point.
Yesterday, the president said from here on in, every time the Houthi rebels attack a ship in the Suez Canal or the surrounding area, they're going to consider it an attack from Iran. Do you think that means we will hit them back immediately, hit Iran back, instead of hitting the Houthi rebels back?
Well, I'm not going to speculate. That's not a situation I can speculate on, nor would I. But one thing that the world knows, whether it's the Houthis or our allies or the bad guys, is that you can trust America to do what's necessary to certainly defend this country. And it will act on, certainly under the Trump administration, it will act on our word and our understanding that across the board, that the carnage that is unleashed around the world, that has been allowed to go on in just 11 weeks of the Trump administration, that we are taking care of business. The president wants peace around the world, everywhere where the terrorist nations are implementing terrorism and mass carnage, that we are the ones who are going to stop it, and that's part of it.
Yeah, there's a report from Reuters saying the Iranian-sponsored Iraqi militias are going to put down their weapons and no longer attack American assets. Do you believe that?
Well, we'll see. Actions matter. So we'll see about actions. And this is just like America. We take action. You can believe the president and what he's going to do. And I think that decisions are usually made when it comes to what people do versus what they say.
Right. We know one thing, the region only understands strength, and President Trump is showing a lot of strength. Tammy Bruce, thanks so much. We look forward to seeing what happens Saturday. Appreciate it.
Very exciting. Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.